Hi, and welcome to The Right Hook. I'm Susan T., and together we'll be exploring easy but effective techniques you can use to make your writing stand out. There'll also be an opportunity at the end of the video to try out your skills on what we covered. So let's get started. The first thing that people are going to notice is your headline. You've got to make it stand out or they're not going to read any further. There are 3 specific techniques we can use to make your headline pop. Let's start with set up a contrast. Use 2 words in your headline to make an opposition to each other, and that's going to get my attention. For example, this headline, which is the lead to an obituary about a minimalist, calls out the difference between someone who used extreme simplicity in their artwork versus stood out, which was anything but simple, anything but minimal. Bird of terror contrasted to great joy. This fossil from a predator of 13 million years ago caused a lot of stir in the paleontologist community and great joy because it filled in a missing link in the fossil puzzle. Again, the contrast, terror and joy. Here's another one. Actually, there's been a riff on this contrast for at least 100 years. Overnight contrasts with 30 years. Other things I've seen are overnight billionaire who struggled for 40 years. Again, the contrast is between overnight and years. Second technique, reach for irony. Now, this is my favorite of your headline techniques, but let's take a moment to actually look at what we mean by irony. Irony is when you lead your listener to believe you're going to hand them one thing, but you actually surprise them with something else. A marriage counselor is somebody who works to help people make their marriages better and stay together. The last thing we expect is that a marriage counselor, a renowned marriage counselor, would file for divorce. We don't see that coming. That's irony. A fire hose factory burns to the ground. Well, this is an old joke. We don't expect a factory that makes parts for putting out fires to close because it was burnt to the ground. Irony. Advice I wish I had given. This is my favorite of all the ironic headlines I've seen. I can't tell you how many times I've seen headlines that say, advice I wish I had had as a kid, or advice I wish I had known. But here, the author of this headline uses dry humor to get your attention because the headline does not look like anything you have probably seen before. Our third technique is be playful. Take a moment to really think about what can grab your reader's attention through using humor or a surprise or a shock, as long as it's not too shocking. So here's an example where we have a riff on a pun. An opinion can be a perspective, but it can also be a judicial ruling. Here, the person who wrote this headline is using the word opinion in 2 fashions. Henpecked husband. Now, the writer of this headline could have used the word woman. Henpecked husband claims another woman made him do it. But by using the word chick, it's also a play on the word henpecked, where a lot of hens gang up on one hen and start pecking at that poor chick. Another case. Parents reject student loans. Do they literally take a vow of poverty? No. But by trying to finance their children's college education out of pocket, they're probably going to be cash-strapped for many years. Again, it's an attempt at humor, but in a way that will grab your attention and make you want to read further. So let's recap. To make your articles really pop, you've got to lead with a headline that will grab attention. Set up a contrast in your headline. Reach for irony. Take the time to be playful. So let's give it a try. Let's say you have a headline. Maybe it begins Grandmother 92. If the article supports it, it might be a headline like Grandmother contrasted to teen. The writer of the headline could have simply said Grandmother 92 chases suspect. But by putting in the word teen, we have the opposites, the contrast between someone very elderly and someone who is much younger. How about this one? Financial guru. Take the time to think about this. How could this end to make you want to read further? Let's go for irony. Maybe the article is about someone who is always giving advice about how to make and save money, ending up without a cent. Call it right out in your headline. We don't see this coming. This guru is going to have to file for bankruptcy. If you want to share comments, questions, or even writing samples, contact me at therighthook123@gmail. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you at my next video.